Hi guys, I'm Francis. I'm going to talk sort of unnaturally quickly at you about low-income home energy efficiency programs, specifically around the Greenhouse Gas Reduction Fund. So that's me on the left. I'm an MBA MS in the Built Environment pathway, and big shout out to my advisor, Professor Alcott, who is the co-director at CPAC here and has done a lot of studies in the similar vein that I took a lot of inspiration from, so thank you to him. So what is the issue that I'm focused on? Two things. So one, residential buildings account for about 15% of US emissions, and at the same time, low-income households have about 3 times the energy burden compared to non-low-income households, that is, the percentage of their income that goes directly to paying the bills. The good thing is that there's a lot of mature energy efficiency technology out there. Think heat pumps, weatherization, appliance electrification, and there's a ton of money out there from the IRA and other programs to help reduce the upfront cost of these upgrades. And specifically, the Greenhouse Gas Reduction Fund, which I'll be referring to as GGRF, is $27 billion to be used as loans to help encourage a mix of private and public lending. The bad, households are very hesitant, and therefore contractors are hesitant to take on these jobs because low-income households do not have the bandwidth to take on financial risk. A lot of programs that have tried to do a similar thing have failed because of just bad program design, and it's not really going to get any easier because it's up to basically thousands of small community development financial institutions, which is a mouthful, I'll call them CDFIs. Think of these as credit unions or lenders that are targeting disadvantaged communities. It's basically up to them to smartly deploy this funding, and that's really not easy because they don't have a lot of energy experience. So why did I focus on the GGRF? Because it has the potential to balance both scale and affordability. So if you think about the sort of traditional grant programs, incentives, things like that, that cover 100% or a partial amount of the cost, it's super affordable to households, but you can't really reach that many households. You can't really accomplish that much with the budget. You can do the other side of the coin, which is just traditional loans. You can reach a lot of households, but it's really not affordable for low-income households, and therefore really is not that appealing. The GGRF allows you to stack loans with grants and also allows for forgivability. So therefore, households don't have to pay the full amount of the loan back, but can still contribute to it, and it makes a lot more sense for both sides. Just to explain how complicated the GGRF is, there's basically 3 programs under which there are multiple awardees. These awardees have hundreds of member CDFIs, and then these hundreds of CDFIs are actually the ones who are applying for that money from the GGRF and giving out these loans. So a lot needs to go right, essentially. And so my theory of change is because many of these CDFIs are new to energy-related lending, they need smart tools to help them make smart decisions and programs. I made one. It's an Excel-based tool, and hopefully the idea is that loan programs will actually make real and responsible emissions reductions for these low-income folks. So the way that my model works is essentially you can put in different characteristics about the household and the loan that your loan program. And I looked at 3 very common upgrade scenarios. So envelope weatherization, think of this as just insulation, improving windows, et cetera, heat pumps, and then full electrification, basically the whole shebang. And the model will tell you basically the impact on the household and also the program at a program-wide level. So some insights from the model. One is just that emissions reductions vary very widely across different upgrade types and also location, specifically just because of the climate of the region and also the dirtiness of the electricity production of the grid of that location. And cost can also vary quite a lot purely because of labor costs. California is expensive, as we know. Upgrades, this is actually really important and kind of non-intuitive. Energy savings does not necessarily mean energy bill savings. In fact, basically based off of the rate of natural gas versus electricity in a certain region, you can actually achieve energy savings, but your bills will go up because electricity is more expensive. So somewhere like Minnesota, this definitely happens. So how do you sort of mitigate that impact? You can instate different affordability definitions to try to make these programs affordable in these sorts of areas. It obviously comes at a cost to the program, but you can essentially say, work with this idea of energy burden caps. So your future bill plus your loan repayment should be, say, no more than 6% of your income, for example. But this obviously comes at a cost to the program. So sort of putting it all together, you can look at here a program, say it has $3 million in budget, you're just looking at heat pumps, and it's going to be in Massachusetts where energy bills go up as you electrify. On the left-hand side, you can look at sort of your traditional 100% coverage. It's relatively affordable for the program, but it's actually completely unaffordable for the household because those energy bills go up over time and you don't actually have that much reach. You can go to the other side of the spectrum where you're doing a traditional loan program. Here it's quite cheap for the program, as you can see, but the household financial burden essentially makes it like, who would do that? If you go all the way to the right, this starts to get interesting because if you say instate a 6% energy burden cap, yes, it's sort of 2x more expensive than the 100% grant, but the households are contributing to the program and also their burden doesn't actually go up too much. So once you start playing with this definition, you can sort of find the sweet spot where it makes sense for both the program and for the households. So what does this mean for CDFI program designers? Basically, there's a lot of policy decisions and sort of philosophical decisions that you have to make. Cost effectiveness targets should obviously reflect the geography, the rates in the region. Affordability definitions obviously make a huge difference and should depend on the geography. And I think like CDFIs can take away two things. One is that you just serve those regions where it's a win-win, where energy reductions means energy bill reductions, or you can try to, if you want to be equitable and be able to reach a broader swath of the US, try to balance your portfolio with sort of easy win regions and also so that you can serve higher forgiveness requirement regions. So obviously a lot of limitations and uncertainties here, a bunch of simplifying assumptions, and also this doesn't address a lot of the other challenges along the value chain to make these upgrades actually happen. But my implementation is based off of essentially handing off and training GGRF awardees on this tool so that they can help their members make good decisions. And finally, I think it'll be super interesting what happens in the Trump administration. Obviously, it'll definitely come under fire. But given that it's not purely free money, maybe there's a silver lining there. And on a personal note, I think it's super tricky but rewarding to sort of work at the intersection of equity and decarbonization. And I'm hoping to continue this work, sort of like putting consumers first and thinking from that lens. Thank you.
What do you think are some of the major implications of a Trump administration that we might be able to, that we should expect when it comes to this space?
Yeah, I think like number one, I'm sure that even if this bill is not sort of outright taken away, it'll just, the administration will like undoubtedly make every sort of step of the way harder. And that just takes up bandwidth for a lot of these programs. And so I think my big worry is like, even if it's technically still around, these awardees are gonna be sort of like fighting tooth and nail, and just the inertia, which is already high because of all these things that I talked about, will just be even higher. So I think that's the concern, and there's lots of other programs like this that are under fire, but I think like helping low-income folks is generally popular, so hopefully there's like a bit of a silver lining there, but I think it'll be tough. Yeah.
Thank you.
Great job. That was awesome. Love the tool, and I hopefully that CDFIs can use it, so I'm wondering what your strategy is to handing it off to somebody to like raising awareness about it.
Yeah. So I started doing this work over the summer at a startup called Sealed and made a lot of contacts there. And I think it's kind of up to the whole ecosystem of different startups and I guess people like us to develop these tools. So I made those connections there, just talking to folks. And I think they're sort of open to all the help that they can get because they know how difficult it is. But so yeah, I've talked to folks who are open to kind of understanding this. And I'm sure they're also sort of developing in-house tools. So hopefully they'll all come together and make a difference.
This is awesome. I'm wondering if there's like a gold standard program that balances these two things well that you've come across in your research, or if this is all new and white space.
That's a good question. I think there are small pockets of private lenders who have certain programs like this who like kind of know that this is an issue. And I think it seems like they're working at a very small scale because they do a ton of diligence sort of upfront to make sure that the household can actually repay. But I think, and the sort of reason why they work well is that like default rates are super, super low apparently. So I think there are like really small lenders out there that are doing this. And so hopefully like the idea of being they also participate in these programs and then like these awardees buy back the loans, et cetera, is hopefully a way that like the best practices aren't like starting from scratch and they can like help folks like those scale, but they're really few and far between, I think.